Ambassador Taiwan Kim was enjoying his morning coffee when 3 different emergency alarms went off at once. The screens in his office at the Earth Diplomatic Center lit up with urgent messages. He didn't move. Instead, he took another sip of his coffee and smiled. In his 20 years as a diplomat, he had learned that panic never helped. The door burst open. His assistant ran in, face red and breathing hard. "Ambassador Kim, the Galactic Council is calling. They say it's extremely urgent." Taiwan set down his coffee cup carefully. "Isn't it always?" he asked. His calm voice made his assistant stop and take a deep breath. The large screen on his wall came to life. The face of a blue-skinned alien with 4 eyes appeared. It was High Counselor Vix of the Galactic Council. All 4 of their eyes were wide with worry. "Ambassador Kim," the alien said, "we need you immediately. The situation is critical." Taiwan nodded slowly. "Good morning to you too, High Counselor. Would you like to tell me what's so urgent that you've set off every alarm in my office?" "You don't understand," Vix said. "We don't just want any human diplomat. We specifically requested you. The Council remembers how you handled the Mars colony crisis last year." Taiwan tried not to laugh. The Mars colony crisis had been a complete accident. He had only solved it because he spilled his lunch on an important document, which made everyone laugh and break the tension. But the aliens thought he had planned it all perfectly. "Ah yes, the Mars incident," he said. "A very careful operation." This wasn't exactly true, but he had learned that sometimes it was better to let others believe what they wanted. His assistant handed him a datapad. On it were the details of 2 alien species about to go to war. The Arcturus were crystal beings who lived for thousands of years. The Nebulons were made of gas and could change their shape. Both were very old, very proud, and very angry at each other. "They're fighting over mining rights in the Carina sector," Vix explained. "Our best mediators have failed. Traditional methods aren't working. You need chaos." Taiwan finished the sentence. He was known throughout Earth's diplomatic service as the Hurricane. Not because he destroyed things, but because he had a way of stirring everything up, and somehow making it work out better than before. Yes, all 4 of Vix's eyes blinked at once. "Your species has a unique way of handling problems. You create confusion that somehow leads to solutions. We don't understand it, but we need it." Taiwan stood up and straightened his tie. "High Counselor, I accept the mission. But I have one condition." The alien leaned forward nervously. "Yes. I'll need my team. And I'll need complete freedom to handle this my way. No restrictions." Vix looked horrified for a moment. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Taiwan's team. They were called the Natural Disasters because each one had a nickname like his. Together, they had solved dozens of diplomatic crises, but their methods made traditional diplomats very nervous. "Granted," Vix said finally. "But please, try not to cause an actual war while preventing one." Taiwan picked up his coffee cup and finished the last sip. "High Counselor, trust me. Sometimes you need a little storm to clear the air." He turned to his assistant. "Call the team. Tell them Operation Chaos is starting. And get me another coffee. It's going to be an interesting day." As his assistant hurried out, Taiwan looked at the data about the 2 alien species again. They were both ancient, set in their ways, and thought they knew everything about diplomacy. He smiled. They had no idea what was coming. They were about to learn why Earth's diplomats were becoming famous across the galaxy, not because they were polite, or traditional, or always followed the rules, but because sometimes the best way to make peace was to shake things up first. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. Its ceiling reached so high that it disappeared into darkness. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in rising circles, like a giant theater. In the center stood Assistant Ambassador Jae-yun Park, looking up at them all without fear. "The situation is worse than we thought," she said, her voice clear and strong. The aliens called her the thunderstorm because she could be as loud as thunder when needed, but also as refreshing as rain. The head of the council, a tall alien made of shifting light, spoke. Explain, Assistant Ambassador Park. Jai-yun touched a control panel, and a huge image appeared above her. It showed 2 star systems, one glowing red and one glowing blue. The Arcturus and the Nebulon territories are now fully mobilized. They have moved their fleets to these positions. Worried whispers filled the chamber. The Arcturus, who looked like walking crystals, and the Nebulons, who were made of swirling gas, were 2 of the oldest species in the galaxy. If they went to war, many other worlds would be pulled into the fight. Traditional diplomacy has failed, Jai-yun continued. She showed images of previous peace talks. The Arcturus refused to sit in the same room as the Nebulons. They say gas species are beneath them. The Nebulons say the Arcturus are too rigid to understand reason. An Arcturus representative stood up, their crystal body catching the light. We have lived in the Carina sector for 10,000 years. The mining rights are ours by ancient law. A cloud of purple gas floated up from another seat. Your laws mean nothing. We have drifted through those stars since before your species learned to grow crystals. Jai-yun waited for them to finish shouting. Then she smiled. It was the kind of smile that made smart people nervous. This is exactly why Ambassador Kim and our team must handle this crisis, she said. Look at you all. You're stuck in your old ways of thinking. You need someone to shake things up. But your methods are chaos. A council member protested. Ambassador Kim once solved a trade dispute by organizing a food fight. Assistant Ambassador Park, you ended a border conflict by teaching both sides to dance. Yes, Jai-yun agreed. And did both solutions work? The council chamber went quiet. They couldn't argue with success, even if they didn't understand it. The Arcturus are crystalline beings, Jai-yun explained. They think in straight lines and fixed patterns. The Nebulons are gaseous. They flow and change. Traditional diplomacy tries to force both sides into the same rigid rules. She paused. But what if we tried something different? She pressed another button. Music started playing in the chamber. It was an old Korean folk song, but mixed with modern beats. Some council members looked shocked. Others started moving slightly to the rhythm. This is how Earth diplomacy works, Jai-yun said. We mix things up. We break patterns. We find new ways for different types of people, or aliens, to understand each other. The head of the council raised a glowing hand. And you believe your team can prevent this war? I believe we're the only ones who can, Jai-yun replied. Because we'll try something no one expects. Ambassador Kim is already planning it. She looked around the chamber. The Arcturus and Nebulons think they're too different to find peace. We're going to prove them wrong. But first, we're going to create a little chaos. The council members looked at each other nervously. They knew Earth's diplomatic team had a reputation for unusual methods. But they also knew that somehow, those methods worked. Very well, the council head said finally. You have our permission to proceed. But please try to keep the chaos contained. Jai-yun bowed slightly. Of course, she said, but inside, she was already thinking of ways to turn the entire diplomatic process upside down. After all, that's what Earth's diplomats did best. Ambassador Taewon Kim stood in his office, looking at 3 screens showing different parts of Earth. On each screen was a member of his team, and he needed all of them for this mission. I know you're all busy, he said, but this is important. The galaxy needs us. On the first screen, trade specialist Hyun-woo Lee was sitting in his Tokyo office. Everyone called him the Tsunami because his diplomatic style swept away all resistance. He was feeding his pet hamster while listening to Taewon. How bad is it? Hyun-woo asked, dropping another piece of food into the hamster's cage. 2 of the oldest species in the galaxy are about to start a war, Taewon replied. The council is desperate. They specifically asked for us. On the second screen, Cultural attaché Sun Mikang smiled. She was in Sydney, where she had just finished preventing a fight between Earth colonists and a group of plant-based aliens. They called her the Earthquake because she shook up everyone's expectations. "Did you tell them we don't follow normal diplomatic rules?" she asked. "They know. That's why they want us." The third screen showed strategic advisor Dong Hook Choi, nicknamed the Avalanche. He was in his London office, surrounded by star maps and alien cultural documents. His methods buried opposition under waves of unexpected ideas. "The Arcturus and Nebulons," Dong Hook said, reading from his datapad. "This won't be easy. They've hated each other for thousands of years." Taiwan nodded. "That's why we need everyone. Hyunwoo, we need your skill at making enemies become trading partners. Sunmai, we need your talent for finding common ground between different cultures. And Dong Hook, we need your creative strategies. What's the plan?" Sunmai asked, leaning forward in her chair. "Jia-yun is already at the council. She's preparing them for our arrival." Taiwan smiled. "We're going to try something new. Something that will either bring peace or cause complete chaos. So, just another normal day for us," Hyunwoo said. And they all laughed. Dong Hook was already packing his bags. "I'll bring my collection of Earth music. Last time, my K-pop playlist helped stop a space pirate attack." "I'll bring my special tea set," Sunmai added. "You'd be surprised how many diplomatic problems can be solved over a good cup of tea." "And I'm bringing my pets," Hyunwoo said. His hamster was now sitting on his shoulder. "Aliens can't resist Earth animals. They think they're fascinating." Taiwan looked at his team with pride. Other diplomats might see them as unprofessional or too casual, but their methods worked. They understood something important. Sometimes making peace meant breaking all the rules first. "Meet me at the space station in 6 hours," he said. "The Council is sending their fastest ship to take us to the Carina sector." As the screens went dark, Taiwan walked to his window. He could see the massive shape of the space station floating above Earth. Somewhere out there, 2 ancient species were preparing for war. They thought they were too different to find peace. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Earth's most chaotic diplomats were coming, and they were bringing all their unusual methods with them. Sometimes, the galaxy needed a hurricane, a tsunami, an earthquake, and an avalanche all at once. Taiwan picked up his bag and headed for the door. It was time to show the galaxy why Earth's diplomats were becoming famous. Not because they followed the rules, but because they knew when to break them. The diplomatic station floated in space between the territories of the Arcturus and the Nebulons. It was a massive ring-shaped structure with windows that showed the stars on all sides. Inside one of its largest meeting rooms, Ambassador Taiwan Kim and his team prepared for their first meeting with both species. "Traditional diplomatic meetings always fail," Taiwan said to his team. "So we won't have one. Instead, we're going to have a party." Sunmai was setting up her portable music system. "I've prepared a mix of Korean traditional music and modern songs," she said. "Music speaks to everyone, even crystal beings and gas clouds." The door opened, and Jia-yun entered with several council members. Their faces showed worry. "The delegations are arriving," she said. "The Arcturus are demanding to enter through the east door. The Nebulons insist on using the west door." "Perfect," said Taiwan. "Let them. Hyunwoo, are you ready?" Hyunwoo nodded. He had set up a long table with an array of Earth drinks and snacks. In the center was a traditional Korean drinking game set. "Ready. Though I'm not sure how beings made of crystal and gas will play drinking games. They won't drink," Dong Hook explained, "but they'll be curious. And curiosity is better than anger." The east door opened first. The Arcturus delegation entered. They looked like walking diamonds, their crystal bodies catching the light and throwing rainbows across the room. They moved stiffly, following strict patterns in their steps. Through the west door came the Nebulons. They floated in like colorful clouds, their bodies shifting between purple, blue, and green. They spread out across their side of the room, carefully staying away from the Arcturus. Before anyone could start the formal introductions, Sun Mai pressed a button. The room filled with the sound of traditional Korean drums mixed with modern beats. Both delegations turned toward the sound in surprise. "Welcome," Tadwan said loudly, walking to the center of the room. "This is not a diplomatic meeting. This is a gathering to share cultures. On Earth, we believe that understanding comes through experience, not just words." "This is highly irregular," the lead Arcturus said, their crystal voice ringing like bells. "We do not understand this approach," the Nebulon leader added, their voice sounding like wind through trees. "Exactly." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "You don't understand each other either, so let's try something new. We have prepared Earth games that both crystal and gas beings can play. The rules are simple, but they require cooperation." The aliens looked at the game setup with a mixture of confusion and interest. The Arcturus were drawn to the geometric patterns on the game boards. The Nebulons were fascinated by the flowing movements of the traditional Korean dance that Sun Mai had started performing. "What is this dance?" a young Nebulon asked, their gas forms swirling in time with the music. "It tells a story of harmony between different elements," Sun Mai explained. Continuing to dance, like crystal and air working together. Some of the Arcturus crystals began to chime in harmony with the music. They couldn't help it. The rhythms matched their natural resonance. The Nebulons noticed this and started to pulse their colors in the same pattern. Taiwan watched as the room slowly changed. The strict division between the two species began to blur. Both sides were too interested in the Earth customs to maintain their usual hatred. "This is only the beginning," he whispered to Jae-yun. "Wait until they see what we have planned for tomorrow." Jae-yun smiled. "Chaos is working already," she said. "They're so confused by our methods that they've forgotten to be enemies." On the second day of negotiations, Hyunwoo Lee stood in the station's zero-gravity chamber, holding a small container. Inside were his most effective diplomatic tools: 3 kittens and 2 puppies from Earth. The container had special gravity controls to keep the animals comfortable. "Are you certain about this?" Jae-yun asked, watching him prepare. "Trust me," Hyunwoo replied. "No one can stay angry when watching Earth pets float in zero gravity. It's scientifically impossible." The delegations from both species entered the chamber for what they thought would be a formal discussion about mining rights. The Arcturus representatives stood in their crystal formation, while the Nebulon representatives floated in their gas clusters. As the meeting began, Dong-Huk stepped forward. "Before we discuss mining rights, we would like to share a story." He activated a holographic display showing scenes from a popular Korean drama. "This is a tale about 2 families who fought over land for generations." The aliens watched with increasing interest as the drama unfolded. The Arcturus noticed how the story followed clear patterns, like their crystal structures. The Nebulons appreciated how the emotions flowed and changed, like their gaseous forms. "In this story," Dong-Huk explained, "the families learned that fighting over the land was causing them to miss opportunities to work together. They found that sharing the land made both families stronger." While the aliens were focused on the story, Hyunwoo quietly opened his container. The kittens and puppies floated out, perfectly happy in zero gravity. They tumbled through the air, playing with each other. A small Nebulon child was the first to notice. Their gas form rippled with delight as a kitten floated past. The kitten batted playfully at the swirling gas, making the young Nebulon giggle. The Arcturus couldn't maintain their rigid formation as puppies bounced off their crystal surfaces, making soft musical notes with each touch. The sound mixed with the drama's background music, creating an unexpected harmony. "What are these creatures?" an Arcturus elder asked, their crystal surface vibrating with curiosity. "Earth's companion animals," Sun Mai explained. "They remind us that joy can be found in unexpected places. See how they play with both crystal and gas beings without prejudice. The chamber had transformed. Arcturus and Nebulons moved closer together, pointing out different animals to each other. The kittens seemed especially fascinated by the Nebulon's swirling forms, while the puppies enjoyed the musical sounds they made bouncing off the Arcturus. Taiwan watched from the doorway with satisfaction. The mining rights dispute isn't just about resources, he said quietly to Jai-yun. It's about two species who forgot how to see beauty in their differences. A senior Nebulon drifted over to them. We have noticed something interesting, they said. The crystal beings make beautiful sounds when the small earth creatures touch them. Our gas forms can shape the sounds into music. Perhaps we could explore this together. An Arcturus leader joined them, their crystal form glowing softly. Our mining techniques could be improved by combining our solid strength with Nebulon flexibility. We had not considered such cooperation before. Jai-yun smiled. Sometimes the best solutions come when we stop thinking and start feeling, she said. These animals don't understand politics or old grudges. They just know how to bring joy. The meeting that was supposed to be about mining rights had turned into something else entirely. As Earth's pets continued to float around the chamber, ancient enemies began to talk about possibilities instead of problems. Chaos theory at its finest, Taiwan said proudly. When you change how people think, you change how they act. Tensions in the diplomatic station reached their peak on the third day. Despite the progress made with the pets and cultural exchange, a dispute over specific mining territories had reignited old conflicts. The Arcturus and Nebulon delegations were once again refusing to communicate directly. Ambassador Tadwan Kim stood in the station's main control room, watching the situation deteriorate. Next to him, Dong-hyuk worked rapidly on a computer terminal, programming something into the station's holographic system. Is the simulation ready? Taiwan asked. Almost, Dong-hyuk replied. Creating an accurate model of a Seoul intersection during rush hour is more complicated than I expected. Jai-yun entered the control room with urgent news. The Arcturus are threatening to leave the station. They say the Nebulons are being unreasonable about the northern mining quadrant. Taiwan nodded calmly. Perfect timing. Send everyone to the main chamber. It's time for our final exercise. When both delegations arrived in the main chamber, they found the room had been transformed. The holographic systems created a perfect recreation of a busy intersection in Seoul. The simulation included vehicles, pedestrians, street vendors, and all the chaos of Earth's city life. What is the meaning of this? The Arcturus leader demanded, their crystal form rigid with annoyance. This is how humans handle chaos every day, Taiwan explained. Both of your species will work together to manage this intersection for 1 hour. The Arcturus will control the traffic signals and pedestrian crossings. The Nebulons will guide the flow of vehicles and people. This is absurd, a Nebulon elder protested, their gas form swirling with agitation. Perhaps, some may agreed, but sometimes we learn best through absurdity. Begin the simulation. The chamber filled with the sights and sounds of Seoul traffic. The Arcturus quickly discovered that their preferred rigid pattern-based approach to controlling the traffic lights caused massive congestion. The Nebulons found that their flexible, flowing style of directing traffic led to confusion without structure. After 15 minutes of growing chaos, something unexpected happened. A young Arcturus crystal began synchronizing the traffic signals with the flowing movements of a Nebulon traffic controller. Together, they created a rhythm that kept vehicles and pedestrians moving smoothly. Other members of both species noticed the success and began to cooperate. The Arcturus provided the stable framework of traffic signals, while the Nebulons adapted the flow of traffic within that framework. The intersection began to function efficiently, despite its chaos. Do you understand now? Taiwan asked after an hour had passed. This intersection is like your mining territory. It seems chaotic and impossible to manage. But when solid structure and flexible flow work together, the chaos becomes a dance. The leaders of both species watched as their younger members continued to coordinate the traffic flow, actually enjoying the challenge. The Arcturus's crystalline chimes mixed with the Nebulon's swirling movements, creating an unexpected harmony. "We have been approaching this wrongly," the Arcturus leader admitted. "We saw our differences as obstacles, when they could be advantages." The Nebulon elder finished the thought, their gas form shifting thoughtfully. "Your Earth traffic shows us that chaos and order can coexist." Taiwan smiled as the two species began discussing how to apply this lesson to their mining rights dispute. Sometimes the best diplomatic solutions came from showing people a new way to look at their problems. "Should we turn off the simulation?" Jia asked quietly. "No," Taiwan replied. "Let them keep practicing. They're learning something more important than traffic management. They're learning how to work together." The diplomatic station's main hall had been transformed for the signing ceremony. Traditional Korean decorations hung alongside crystalline structures created by the Arcturus and floating light patterns generated by the Nebulons. The combination created an atmosphere that no one had seen before in diplomatic history. Ambassador Taiwan Kim stood at the center of the room, watching as the final preparations were made. After 4 days of unconventional diplomacy, both species had reached an agreement that surprised everyone, including the Galactic Council. "The mining rights agreement is ready for signing," Jia announced, carrying the digital treaty tablet. "Both sides have approved the final terms." The agreement was revolutionary. Instead of dividing the mining territories, the Arcturus and Nebulons had decided to work together. The Arcturus would use their crystal technology to create stable mining tunnels, while the Nebulons would use their gaseous nature to extract minerals from spaces too small for solid beings to enter. Sun Mai approached the podium and activated the sound system. "As is now tradition," she said with a smile, "we will begin with music." The room filled with a unique melody. Korean traditional instruments played alongside the natural chimes of Arcturus crystals and the harmonic whispers of Nebulon gas forms. The three distinct sounds merged into something entirely new. The leaders of both species moved to the center of the room. The Arcturus leader's crystal body glowed with formal patterns, while the Nebulon leader's gas form shifted in elegant swirls. They had learned to appreciate each other's ways of expressing themselves. "Before we sign," the Arcturus leader announced, their voice ringing clearly, "we wish to thank Earth's diplomatic team. They showed us that our differences need not divide us." The Nebulon leader swirled in agreement. "They taught us that chaos can lead to harmony if we are willing to embrace new possibilities." Jia stepped forward with the treaty tablet, but before the signing could begin, she did something unexpected. She activated the karaoke system that Sun Mai had secretly installed. "In Korea," Jia explained, "we often seal important agreements with a song. It reminds us that formal documents are just the beginning of friendship." To everyone's surprise, she began singing the Korean folk song. The Arcturus found that their crystal bodies naturally resonated with certain notes, while the Nebulons discovered they could create accompanying harmonies with their gas forms. Soon, the entire room had joined in. Crystal beings chimed in harmony while gas forms swirled in rhythm. The Galactic Council representatives watched in amazement as ancient enemies created music together. When the song ended, both leaders signed the treaty. But it was more than just a mining agreement. It was a promise to explore new ways of working together, inspired by Earth's ability to find order in chaos. "This is why we needed human diplomats," a council member admitted to Taiwan. "No other species would think to seal a peace treaty with karaoke." Taiwan watched as Arcturus and Nebulon representatives exchanged traditional gifts, crystal sculptures, and gas form light displays. "Sometimes," he said, "the best traditions are the new ones we create together." The ceremony continued long into the night. Stories were shared, songs were sung, and new friendships were formed. The diplomatic station, which had started as a place of tension, had become a celebration of unity in diversity. As Jia observed the success of their mission, she turned to Taiwan. Do you think they understand why our chaotic methods work so well? Perhaps, he replied, watching an Arcturus crystal teaching a young Nebulon how to create musical resonance. But more importantly, they've learned that chaos isn't always something to fear. Sometimes it's the beginning of something beautiful. 1 month after the successful peace treaty between the Arcturus and Nebulons, the Galactic Council held a special session. The main chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. At the center of attention stood Ambassador Taiwan Kim and his team. The head counselor, their form glowing with formal energy, addressed the gathering. We are here today to recognize a significant change in galactic diplomacy. The success of Earth's diplomatic methods can no longer be ignored. Taiwan stood with his team as the head counselor continued. The chamber screen showed images from their recent mission: floating pets in zero gravity, the Soul traffic simulation, and the musical peace treaty signing. Therefore, the head counselor announced, the Council has created a new division, the Human Chaos Initiative. This team will train diplomats from all species in Earth's unique methods. Jia stepped forward to accept the official documents. As she did, a message appeared on the main screen. It was a request for help from the Stellar Federation, a group of 6 star systems facing their own crisis. They specifically asked for your team, the head counselor explained. They say they need your unpredictable approach. Hyunwoo checked his pet carrier, where his hamster was sleeping peacefully. Did you tell them about our methods? We did, a council member replied. They said that's exactly why they want you. Their traditional negotiations have failed for 3 years. Sunlight was already checking the cultural database on her tablet. The Stellar Federation includes species made of light, sound, and magnetic fields, she said. Think of the music we could make together. Dong-Kuk smiled as he reviewed the Federation's details. Their crisis involves trade routes and cultural misunderstandings. Perfect for our approach. The success of the Arcturus-Nebulon Treaty had changed everything. Now, species throughout the galaxy were requesting Earth's diplomatic team. They wanted diplomats who could turn chaos into opportunity, who could find harmony in discord. Ambassador Kim, the head counselor, said, your team's official title is now Chaos Ambassadors. You will have full authority to use your unique methods wherever they are needed. Taiwan looked at his team with pride. Jia, the thunderstorm who could shake up any situation. Hyunwoo, whose pets had melted the hardest hearts. Sun Mai, who turned diplomacy into a song. And Dong-Hyuk, who could find patterns in chaos. We accept this responsibility, Taiwan said, but we have one condition. The council waited nervously. They had learned that conditions from Earth's diplomats usually led to unexpected situations. We want to train others in our methods, Taiwan continued. Not just humans, but members of all species. The galaxy needs more diplomats who aren't afraid of chaos. The council agreed immediately. Soon, the diplomatic station would become a school, where beings of all kinds would learn Earth's special approach to peace. As the ceremony ended, Jia received another urgent message. 3 more species were requesting the Chaos Ambassador's help. The galaxy was changing, embracing new ways of solving old problems. Ready for more chaos? Taiwan asked his team. They all nodded. This was their mission now, showing the galaxy that sometimes the best way to make peace was to break all the usual rules. As they prepared for their next assignment, they knew that their reputation would only grow stronger. Earth's chaotic diplomacy had become the new standard, and the galaxy would never be the same.